What's up, guys? Emile Hoogenhout here, Ableton certified trainer and 2011 Red Bull Music Academy participant. Thank you so much for joining me for another Ableton Live tutorial, and I'm very happy to bring to you guys today a audio effect that I've pieced together, which is an amalgamation of the resonator audio effect and a dub delay, which is an audio effect rack that I created quite a while ago. And for those of you who are not familiar with the resonator audio effect, it works very similarly to a vocoder. You need to send audio through the effect, and then it is going to resonate these virtual strings, or this membrane, where you can actually pick your different voicings and create these amazing chordal sounds. And the moment I saw the resonator, which was quite a while ago, like when I first got introduced to the resonator, I always wanted to put together an audio effect that would be able to play any chord in any key signature. You know, obviously have your different chordal tones set up, and you can actually bring the voicings in and out depending on what it is that you're looking for, you know, texturally. So I managed to actually put it together and create these different voicings that are completely independent of each other, so you can bring them in or out, and they'll also relate to the key that you're in. So for example, if you have your third, you know, whether you're in a major key, then your third will be, you know, normal. Then if you're in the minor key, then your third will be flattened, for example. So all your different chord extensions as well will be taken care of depending on in what key you're in, and also what degree or what chord within the key signature that you're playing. So that is all taken care of in this device, and obviously with a dub delay at the back end, you can actually now get these chords and, you know, create feedback loops with them. And you know, with a repitch function on the delay, you can also create these amazing textural sounds, you know, so you could really just get lost in it. So the download is going to be for free. The link is going to be in the video description at the bottom, and I'm also going to be touching on creative use of return channels, because that was really the inspiration of the Reso Dub audio effect that I've created. So I'm going to explain to you guys how to get into creative use of return channels and channel routing in the beginning. So that's pretty much it, guys. So let's get started. Okay, so I've got a MIDI instrument over here, which is just a grand piano, and I've recorded a 4-chord sequence over here, and I'm just going to explain a little bit about how to use sends. So for those of you who are not familiar with return channels are on your right hand side over here. I've got return A, B, and C, and that's always by your master channel on the right hand side, and then your regular channels are on the left. And you can open and close sends to these channels. So for example, if you play something through here, like if I'm playing this and I bring this up over here, you can actually see that the audio is starting to send to my A return channel. So you can actually blend the two sounds together depending on what it is that you want to create. So now we can actually start bringing in audio effects and putting them into our return channels. So I'm going to open this up, and I've got a ballad reverb already here that I'm just going to drag in, and I'm just going to up the decay time, and I just want to show you how easily you'd be able to actually get some results just by using you know, your sends creatively. So let's press play. So bring in some reverb. So that is generally the approach that most people take in terms of using sends. You know, they would, you know, have an effect, or maybe have like an effect rack or something on the return channel, and then open and close it, and just use it in a traditional sense. But we can actually take this idea further, and we can actually enable, if you look at your sends over here, you can actually enable these return channels to send to other sends or other return channels. So if you right click on any of these knobs and you say enable all sends, then you can actually start sending you know, this audio that's obviously been affected by my reverb already to other channels, to be able to actually further the audio like manipulation. So instead of having to constantly use the dry piano sound and sending to various effects, you can actually now just take the reverb sound over here, which is already texturally different to your clean grand piano sound, and you can actually now send it to another audio effect and experiment with that. So let's try and do that. So I'm going to open this up, and I want to go and get a redux. So I'm going to grab a 12-bit fidelity redux and just drop that in the B return channel. And I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to send this now from my A ballad reverb effect send to the 12-bit fidelity. So I'm actually going to bring that in a bit. So let me press play. You're going to hear the reverb, and then I'm going to bring in the redux afterwards from the reverb signal. So check this out. And we can change the sample rate. So if I solo this, you can actually hear that is just the reverb being sent to the 12-bit fidelity audio effect, and then obviously the redux is picking that up and affecting that further. So that is essentially the idea, but the great thing is we don't have to just press solo here to get this effect. We can actually go to this section over here, because if I press play here and I bring the volume down, I'm not going to actually hear the sends anymore, because the volume is directly linked. This volume of the channel is directly linked to whether the sends are actually still receiving their signals. So you can actually bypass that by using these three buttons over here. So this means post level. So that basically means like post volume fader, which means the volume fader is affecting how much signal this is actually receiving. And you can actually do it pre-volume fader when you click on them, and you can bring this down. So I'm going to press play and just bring that down, so you'd be able to actually hear that you can just work with the texture itself. So you can use this as a carrier frequency or signal and then manipulate the audio so that it's basically unrecognizable, which is really cool. So let's try that. And I can bring this out. So now you're just picking up the redux sound. And we can enable these sends. We can send this back into the reverb. And we can bring the reverb up. And just mute that. So now you can hear the redux. So did you hear what happened there? That is called a feedback loop. Because what we did now is we started sending the channel from one to the other back into the first one, and that creates an infinite loop. So that means that if you leave that to carry on playing, it's going to start going completely out of control. So the overtones and the frequencies are just going to pick up and become more excited until it just starts distorting. But the most amazing thing is to actually start exploring within that to be able to create these amazing textural sounds that you can manipulate. So you need to obviously be very careful when you're working with feedback loops, and that's why I would suggest grabbing like a limiter, for example. So we can go in and grab a limiter, and let me say I want the upper ceiling setting, and if I'm going to be feeding back onto the channel A reverb over here, then the limiter needs to be on the reverb here, or you could actually have the limiter on your master, depending on what it is that you want to achieve. But so we can actually start playing around with that, but we can further this idea. So we've got our 12-bit fidelity redux sound, we've got our ballad reverb sound, but we've got another return channel over here that we can play around with. And I was thinking maybe getting a dub delay or creating some sort of a dub delay just by grabbing a simple delay, dropping that in there. We can change a delay time quickly. And when I don't know whether you guys have actually seen this, but you can actually right click on any delay device. So when you right click on your delay device, you've got these three settings at the bottom over here: repitch, fade, and jump. Now the repitch mode is pretty much my favorite mode that I use for my delay sounds, because it actually emulates a proper real delay unit, like a hardware delay unit. So that means when you change the delay time, it'll repitch to get to the new delay time. So whether you're going from a slow delay time to a faster delay time, it's going to repitch upward, or vice versa. So basically, instead of fading or jumping to the new delay time without having the delays be affected that you've already picked up through the device is actually picking it up and accordingly, like, changing, as you manipulate the actual knob. So I'm going to click repitch over here, and now our delay is set up, and we can incorporate these sends as well. So we'll enable these sends. And when I press play over here, I'm going to send it to the reverb. Then I'm sending the reverb to the simple delay. So I'm going to leave the redux out for now, or we can actually just create a link. So let's go to the reverb, then the reverb to the redux, and the redux to the delay. So I'm going to bring in the delay afterwards, and I'm going to click on these buttons over here that will change the delay time. And I want you to actually listen out for the textural differences and hear how the repitch mode creates these, like little wobbly bits and really interesting textural stuff. So check this out. So we've been sending to the reverb and then to the fidelity over here, and then we're sending out to the delay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repitch these. So listen out. Obviously, depending on how much feedback you have, and you can obviously change the sync, and now it's time-based. So now you can actually play around with that and make it sound so much more interesting. Instead of actually just having your regular piano part and then putting some reverb on it, or having your piano part and having to worry about, like, okay, well, I want this part to be clean after this section, so I need to take out all my audio effects afterwards, or have to worry about, like, switching on and off the devices. You can now just set up a bunch of sends, and when you feel like feeding one into the other, these are already linked up to feed to each other, so you can literally just open and close this guy and send to all these other return channels that envelop the audio and like mess with it and mold it. So you're actually able to become more generative in terms of how your music production is. So you're relying more on the software of how it calculates how the reverb is going to affect the fidelity and so on and so forth. So it's really, really interesting stuff, and I definitely highly recommend it. But like I said, be very careful when you're dealing with feedback loops, because you don't want to actually break your set of monitors, or you don't want to like go completely deaf. So I would just recommend using a limiter and working accordingly. Take it slow. Keep your fingers always very close to your gain, so you can actually control the audio. But you start learning how to ride it, and it's really interesting because that relates to dub audio production as well, which I find very, very interesting. They would back in the day sit with, and a lot of guys still do that, with like analog desks, and they would feed channels into each other and just play around with the audio effects and just create these amazing approaches to music making, which is very exciting. So that was essentially the inspiration of the Reso Dub audio effect, and I'm going to start explaining to you guys now how the Reso Dub works. So let's just take a small tour. I'm going over here, and let me just get started just by showing you what I've got here. So these two panels over here, so these 8 knobs and these 8 knobs, is pretty much how the ResoDUB works. So you've got your left delay time, your right delay time, your free sync delay, so you can either have time based or you know, in terms of like note values set up for your sync or your free. Your feedback, obviously self-explanatory. Your chord degree, when I open this up, you can actually see all of these. The Roman numerals are there, and this represents all the different degrees within the key signature, so all the different chords within that. So obviously, like I said, all your different chord tones, whether they're sharp or flat, has been taken care of, whether it's major or minor. So so these are your different chords. So that would be your root position. You know, then you could play like a 2 2 4 5. So that would be 2 you know, 4 5, and then you can go to 1, which is obviously your tonic. So you could play around with different chord progressions just by using the dial. But the cool thing is also you can map the chord degree to your controller. So for example, if I'm pressing user mode in my push controller, and I want to map this now to my grid, I know that there's 7 chords within this key signature, and if I just go into map mode, which is Command M, and I click on the chord degree macro, and I just press the first note, and then 7 notes on, I'll press the second note. So the first note's going to be pressed and held down, and then I'm going to press the second note afterwards. You can actually see that it's going to map a range from the first note to the 7th note, you know, and then I can select between them. So first note and then 7th note, and when I go out of map mode now and I press the buttons, you can actually see that you know, the selector over here, the chain selector's moving. So you can actually select different chords, you know, like that. So you can open and close these channels. I've also played around with having all these on one select, all the chains set up one after the other, and then you just open and close these guys over here. You can MIDI map that as well, so you could play with that as well if that suits you better. So it all comes down to how you work and how you want to incorporate it. So these are all the different chords, and when we open that up, you can see that every single rack is within another rack. So this would be your root position chord, for example. That's your root, your 3rd, your 5th, your 7th, your 9th or 11th. So the 7th is also capable of playing a 6th. So let's go back. I'm going to hide this, and I just want to show you guys the rest of the knobs over here. So we've got our delay section, like I said, the chord degree, so you can select the different chords. Then it's got a reverb set up here, so that's over there. So that's just the dry wet. So it switches off when it's down, and that saves on CPU. So you can actually open this up and drown it completely in reverb, which is really, really interesting. I don't know if you guys have heard the resonator, you know, drowned in reverb. It sounds really cool. Or you can actually balance it out 50-50 or just kill it. So there's that option as well, texturally. And then we've got our auto filter set up over here. And you can obviously control how the resonator or the delays are coming through here, so you can mute them completely or bring them down to very low frequency and have them sweep up. And then you've got your LFO amount, which you know, obviously affects how the auto filter will work. So when you bring this down, for example, and this is all the way up, you're setting up a range for it to sweep. And that's really cool when you're dealing with delays. Like, I love dealing with auto filter as well, because then your delays are constantly changing, you know, sonically. They become more dull or brighter, you know. So that's really, really cool to work with as well. And here are all your different voicings. So your root will always be voiced, depending on obviously where your chord degree is. And then you can bring in the 3rd. And, you know, so you'll have your lower octave on your 3rd at about 1/4 and when you go to about 64, that's when you voice the upper octave of the 3rd And if you just want to voice the upper octave alone, then you'll go past 64. So let me show you the mapping over here, just to give you an idea. So we're at third over here, and this would be your different two voicings. That would be the lower octave, for example. And like you see, there's a fade in over here, which means this is actually a creative knob, which means if you want to voice the third but you don't want it to be too loud, then obviously you'll stay within the region over here, but you can bring it up to about 32 and then it would voice fully. And then when you get past 48 about, then you actually start bringing in the second voicing, which is the upper octave in this case for this knob. So that'll bring in the upper octave. Then about here at about 72, I say, would be perfect voicing for both voices to play simultaneously. And then if you carry on past 88, you'd just be able to voice the upper octave. So that's pretty much how this is mapped out. And then you know, that crosses over when you go from major to minor, depending on the different voicing and whether that changes in a major key or a minor key, depending on the chord that you're in terms of the key signature. So I hope you guys picked that up. But yeah, so that is pretty much how this works. So the fifth is exactly the same as well. It would be the first voicing, and then the upper octave, which is about at 72, would be completely voiced. Both would be completely voiced. And then past 80, you would just voice the upper octave of the fifth. So for the 6th and the 7th knob and the 9th and the 11th knob, it works exactly the same way, but I didn't want to get an octave of the 6th or an octave of the 7th, and also for the 9th or 11th. I thought it would be cool to actually have the 6th as an option, and then you can go to the 7th. I set up the crossover point between the 6th and the 7th to be a bit smaller, because I don't like voicing the 6th and the 7th in the same chord. Sometimes it sounds very you know, like clustered, so I'm not really into that too much, but you can do that. That's an option. And obviously the 9th and the 11th work exactly the same way as well. And then obviously we've got our key over here. As you can see, it doesn't show you what key you're in over here, because so many different elements are mapped to the key macro over here. So you just have to actually go to your root. And so whatever key you're in, just make sure that you've got your root set up here. And if you direct your eyes to the right hand side over there, then you'd be able to see that you're in C2. And you could just change that, and now we're in A2. So I basically set this effect up to work within the range of C2. You can also go all the way back to C-1 or whatever, and you can get these very like dark, dingy drones, and it's very difficult to work with. But if that's the type of sound that you're looking for, you can also get into that. So that's really cool. And then you've got your major and minor. So you're in C, and now you'll be in C major or C minor. Your decay is self-explanatory. That's the decay for the resonator, so you can make it really staccato or legato. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to stop rambling, and I want to just show you what this sounds like. So we're going to start out with a basic drum pattern, and then we can actually work around it. So I'm just going to press play here. So this is our drum pattern that we're going to use. And if I switch this on, so you've got the resonator voicing the first, the root position or the root notes. As you can see, it's coming through here. I'll bring in the third. So that's major. I can bring in the octave. That's cool. We'll bring in the fifth. Can bring in the sixth, or we can go to the seventh. Bring in the ninth. We can bring in some reverb. So you could drown it completely in reverb. Change the chords. That's only the upper octaves. Change the chord degree. Let me just switch this on so we can go to the second chord. Go to third chord. And now you can mess around with the delay as well. So this is free, you can sync it. Change the key. So now we're in a minor key. Change the LFO amount to the filter. And work with feedback. So that you can actually see how unbelievably moldable the actual sounds are, you know. And you can always go to a different chord as well. So that is essentially the one way of working with this device. You can get these amazing textural sounds, and you know, I'm very excited to actually see what you guys are going to do with it. But that's obviously just the audio effect on the actual channel. So we can actually take this further. Let me just delete that. We can take this further and use it as a return channel. Now, when you're using a return channel over here, if I just drag the ResoDUB and put it in a return channel over here, we're not going to be able to actually record our different changes, because that's what's so great about Ableton Live 9 is the fact that you can record your automation now. And by recording your automation, you're actually able to record chord progressions just by turning the knob or just by assigning it to your controller, whichever. But that we want to be able to actually use that to our advantage, you know, as an approach. So we can create another audio channel just by pressing Command T, and we want to drop the ResoDUB in there. So let's rename that. So Command R, and let's call this ResoDUB. So ResoDUB, that's our ResoDUB channel, and let's just cut this. So Command X, I'm just moving that over, because now what I want to do is I want to be able to blend it. That's Command V to paste. I want to be able to blend the drums, so the actual natural drum quality or clean sound with the ResoDUB that would actually incorporate you know, the sounds, or like make it a lot thicker. So let's take this reverb out, and let's send our drum channel out to our return channel over here. So we're sending the A out over here, but now we need to get this audio into this channel over here. And it's very easy with Ableton. You just press Command Alt I, and you go to your Audio 2 section over here, and you just click on that, and you just say, I want it to send the audio to the ResoDUB channel. So you click on that, we can close that up. And now if we bring this up, so let's just press play, bring this up. So when we start sending that, that's now sending to here. But what we need to do is we need to actually now enable monitoring to happen. So the audio is actually here and it's being sent to here, but we need to go back in and we need to set up our monitor to receive audio. So if we say in, it's now receiving the audio. There we go. And now we've got the option of keeping the drums down and using that as a reference if we wanted to, or we can actually bring in the drums and blend it. verb. So basically what I wanted to show you now is now we're able to actually record audio over here. Well, not audio, we can record our actual automation, so we can actually come up with a chord progression and just record it in. So let's play around and let's see if we can come up with a cool chord progression. So let's try a different drum pattern. Go to different key. So let's record that in. Try it again. And you can go in, for example, and you can have a look at it. Go here, go to your ResoDUB, and you can actually see the changes. You can actually write this in by pressing B. You can make some changes. So if we drag that in, and you just smooth that out, then the progression. There we go, that's cool, that sounds good. And now we can actually go in and make further changes. So I'm just going to jam, but before I get started with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for checking out this tutorial, and I'm very excited to share this device with you. And please drop me a line. You can email me at behr.things@gmail.com. You can also join the Ableton Certified Trainers South Africa Facebook group. I'm going to add a link for that as well, so you guys can share your devices on there. Or if you guys wanted to just drop me a line, that's cool as well. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to just mess around now and jam out. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks. Cheers.